They hid it because it was too powerful. Because if people knew how it really worked, they'd stop searching outside themselves for something that was never missing. The truth is, there once was a form of prayer that didn't ask, didn't plead, and didn't beg. It didn't rely on rituals or middlemen. It was a way of speaking directly to creation, not through words, but through feeling, and it worked. That's exactly why it was buried beneath centuries of translation, doctrine, and fear. Because when you know how to speak the language of the universe, you stop being controllable. You stop waiting for miracles and start creating them. For thousands of years, prayer was understood as a conversation between your inner world and the living field around you, a dance between energy and consciousness. The ancients didn't believe in separation. They saw life as a mirror, constantly reflecting back the vibration you carried. So when they prayed, they didn't say, "Please let it rain." They felt the rain. They imagined the wet ground beneath their feet, smelled the scent of earth rising to meet the sky, heard the drops hitting rooftops, and thanked creation for what had already arrived. That's the ancient code, the prayer they hid. Not because it stopped working, but because it worked too well. At some point, humanity forgot. Prayer became about lack instead of connection. We started asking for what we didn't have instead of feeling what already exists. And when you pray from lack, you unknowingly tell the universe, "I don't have this thing." The universe, obedient and neutral, simply echoes that back. You ask for rain and get more dryness. You ask for peace and keep meeting chaos. You ask for love and find only distance. Not because the prayer wasn't heard, but because it was heard perfectly. That's the tragedy and the beauty of creation. It always says yes, always. Whatever frequency you're sending, it mirrors it back like a divine echo chamber. Ancient cultures understood this. They treated feeling as sacred technology, the bridge between thought and matter. They knew emotion wasn't weakness. It was the key that unlocked the hidden architecture of reality. The moment you could feel the outcome is already done, creation would align with it. They didn't wait for proof. They became the proof. And maybe that's why this knowledge had to be hidden. Because once you realize prayer isn't about asking, it's about remembering, everything changes. You stop chasing miracles and you start embodying them. You stop living like a servant waiting for divine favor, and you start living like the divine, expressing itself through you. The ancients didn't worship power, they partnered with it. And the ones who understood this secret walked among the ordinary, doing extraordinary things, not because they were chosen, but because they knew how to feel creation into being. That's the ancient prayer they hid. And now, you're remembering it. Once you understand that the ancients prayed through feeling, not words, everything begins to click. You start realizing why their prayers worked and why so many modern ones don't. They weren't begging the universe to change. They were speaking its language. Because the universe doesn't respond to sentences. It responds to states of being. It's not moved by how many times you repeat a mantra or how perfectly you phrase your request. It responds to what you're feeling right now. That's the secret hidden beneath centuries of translation, the one line that got lost in the edits. The universe mirrors what you feel, not what you say. Think of it like tuning a radio. If you want to hear a certain station, you have to match its frequency. You can twist the dial and say, "Please play my favorite song," but unless you're actually tuned to the right frequency, you'll just get static. The ancient prayer works the same way. When you pray from lack, you're tuned to absence. When you pray from gratitude, you're tuned to abundance. One channel broadcasts fear, the other broadcasts creation. The old masters understood this intuitively. That's why they didn't ask for rain. They felt the rain. They were aligning with the vibration of what they desired, not the vibration of needing it. What they discovered was revolutionary and dangerous to those who profited from control. Because when people remember that emotion is the universal code, they don't need intermediaries or institutions to reach the divine. They realize that heaven isn't a place above, it's a frequency within. That realization breaks systems. It frees minds. and that's why the knowledge had to be hidden beneath centuries of mistranslation and ritual. The ancients were never trying to keep this power from us. It was later generations who learned how to hide truth behind reverence and power behind obedience. You might have felt glimpses of this in your own life, when you think of someone and they suddenly text you, when you imagine success so vividly that opportunities start appearing from nowhere. Those aren't coincidences, they're moments where your internal frequency matched an external outcome. You accidentally spoke the language of creation. The same energy that governs stars and oceans listens to your every emotion. It's like a mirror made of consciousness, showing you, again and again, who you believe yourself to be. And that's the language they didn't want you to remember, because once you start feeling instead of asking, your entire relationship with creation changes. You stop trying to convince something outside you to help and start realizing it's been helping all along by reflecting your internal world with perfect accuracy. You don't pray to manipulate reality, you pray to align with it. When your emotions and your desires finally match, the field listens. Not because it chooses to, but because it must. That's the law they hid in plain sight, the one buried in forgotten texts and whispered through generations. Feel it as real, and it becomes real. So if feeling is the real language of creation, you can imagine how dangerous that knowledge would have been in the wrong hands, or too many hands. Imagine a world where everyone understood that their emotions and beliefs literally shape reality. There'd be no need for hierarchy, no dependence on priests, kings, or institutions to speak on anyone's behalf. People would remember that divinity was never external, and when humanity begins to remember its power, control structures start to crumble. That's why parts of this knowledge were buried, rewritten, and eventually replaced with a version of prayer that teaches dependence instead of creation. In the earliest sacred texts, the message was clear and empowering. The original teachers weren't trying to build religions, they were describing universal laws. But as these words passed through centuries of translators, political agendas, and empires, subtle but crucial details shifted. The simple truth, ask without hidden motive and be surrounded by your answer, was replaced by ask and you shall receive. Just a few words changed, but the meaning was turned inside out. Suddenly, prayer became a waiting game instead of an act of creation. Instead of feeling abundance, people were taught to request it and wait. And that waiting created an energetic gap, a sense of separation that kept humanity disconnected from its own power. When you look back through history, this pattern repeats everywhere. The spiritual became institutional, mystical truth became moral rule, and anything that encouraged inner authority was either silenced or labeled heresy. But the ancient prayer didn't disappear entirely. It survived in fragments, whispered through the teachings of mystics, Sufis, yogis, and shamans. They all said the same thing in different words. Creation doesn't come from asking, it comes from being. You don't have to reach for the divine. It's the current running through your every breath. That truth never died. It was simply hidden beneath layers of translation designed to keep you searching outward instead of inward. You can see the effect of this even today. Millions of people pray every day with pure hearts and deep longing, but their prayers feel unanswered because they're praying in a language creation doesn't speak. They say the words but not the feeling. They ask for love while feeling lonely. They ask for healing while focusing on sickness. And so the universe mirrors back more of that emotion, not as punishment, but as precision. It's responding perfectly to the signal being sent. If that sounds cruel, remember, it's not judgment, it's mechanics. Just like gravity, it doesn't care who you are. It simply reflects your energy back to you. That's why the ancients were so careful with emotion. They didn't suppress it, they mastered it. They knew feeling wasn't weakness, it was creation in motion. And when they prayed, they weren't hoping for something, they were embodying it. That's the power that was removed from the common man. The realization that you are not separate from God, the universe, or the field. You are a living expression of it. To hide that truth was to ensure dependency. To remember it is to reclaim sovereignty. And that's exactly what happens when you rediscover the ancient prayer they tried so hard to erase. Because it doesn't just work, it awakens. They could hide the words, but they couldn't erase the truth buried in human memory. Deep down, every person still knows how to do it. You felt it before, in those quiet moments when you stopped asking and just knew. When the noise in your head went silent, and something inside whispered, "It's already done." That's the same power the ancients lived by. The feeling-based prayer wasn't superstition, it was a precise technology for creation. And if you're wondering why it works, it's because emotion is energy in motion, the bridge between the invisible and the visible. When you feel something as real, your body, mind, and the field around you synchronize with that frequency. Reality has no choice but to rearrange itself to match it. That's what the hidden line in the original prayer meant. Be surrounded by your answer. Be enveloped by what you desire. You can't be surrounded by something that doesn't already exist, so you start by living inside the feeling. That's the essence of this ancient art. You don't wait for the outcome to give you the emotion. You let the emotion bring the outcome to you. Feel gratitude before the gift arrives. Feel peace before the chaos ends. Feel love before someone offers it. When you do, you're no longer trying to manifest something new. You're aligning with what's already present in the unseen field. It's simple, but not always easy. The mind wants to measure progress, to see proof before it believes. But creation doesn't work that way. The ancient prayer teaches that belief comes first. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every morning to check if it's growing. You water it, trust it, and act as if it's already becoming a tree. Feeling-based prayer is the same. The emotion is the water, the faith is the sunlight, and your consistent awareness is the soil that keeps it alive. The more real it feels inside you, the faster it grows into form. People often ask, "But what if I don't feel it yet?" That's where practice comes in. The ancients didn't just pray when things went wrong, they cultivated the feeling daily so that when they prayed, they could instantly enter the frequency of completion. You can do the same. Start small. If you want peace, remember a time you felt it, even for a second, and expand that feeling until it fills the room. If you want abundance, think of something that already makes you feel abundant. A warm meal, a safe home, a moment of laughter. That emotion is the vibration of abundance. When you amplify it, you're speaking to creation in its native tongue. That's the secret they couldn't let everyone know. Because if you master this, if you can feel what you want before it appears, you no longer depend on anyone to give it to you. You become the source. You become the prayer. Words may inspire you, rituals may center you, but it's the feeling that does the work. That's what the ancients were trying to pass down before the words were changed. Feeling isn't the result of answered prayer, it is the prayer. And when you understand that, you'll never wonder if your prayers are being heard again, because you'll realize you are the one the universe has been listening to all along.